Hi, I'm Leon Lovelace, and this is Unstoppable Force. Now, I'm using a different camera. My charger for my DSLR, it's actually not working at all, so I'm going to buy a new one. So that's why I need your help to donate to my PayPal. Put a link in the description box below. I'm going to throw it on here too, so you guys can go there and donate to my show so I can expand this channel. But the quality on this camera is pretty good, so it's actually one of the good benefits of having one of the latest and greatest cell phones is the camera's good. But actually, this cell phone's actually like 2 or 3 years old now. But just in the past, just the cell phone cameras are pretty trash. But now this one's actually good, so it's actually usable for me. But besides just giving you guys some information about my setup, I actually need to talk to you guys about one story that I watched Kyle Klinsky do on Secular Talk. I think it was 2 months ago. And it was that one major city is actually worried about running out of water. And this is from the BusinessInsider.com. And a major coastal city is running out of water faster than anyone predicted, and people are terrified about day zero. This article is written in January of this year, January 29th. Alright, Cape Town, South Africa has moved up its predictions for the city will run out of water, with officials now saying they'll likely have to shut off the taps in early April. The city's economy, which relies heavily on tourism and agriculture, could take a big hit. Now, I'm not really worried about the economy because people are more important than profits. So I'm not going to worry too much about the tourism part, but the agriculture that actually is going to actually help people, help the health and well-being of people. So the agriculture part is pretty important. Okay, and then residents, politicians, and credit raters are all worried about conditions of anarchy if day zero arrives. Right, Cape Town is on track to turn off the faucets earlier than anyone predicted. The coastal city, one of Africa's most popular tourist destinations, is grappling with the worst drought conditions it has faced in over a century. City dams are now 27.2% full, and they reach 13.5% capacity. The city says it will be forced to move to a bucket brigade-style system of water distribution. And then I'll skip this paragraph. It just repeats the same thing I just said. Well, the article says, last week Cape Town officials announced that the day when they'll have to shut off the faucets, which they're calling Day Zero, has moved from April 21st to April 12th. And since we know we're not doing jack shit to really improve any of the climate change that's been going on for decades and decades, I wouldn't be surprised if it's earlier than April 12th, when the government officials are actually looking at this now. But as of now, this is all I know of is day zero for them is April 12th. That happens. The only way Cape Townians would get water from the city would be through a pre-industrial style network of 200 water distribution points. People would have to line up at taps around the city to collect an allotted 25 liters of water each day, then haul it home to shower, clean, flush, and do everything else that requires fresh water. Moody's warned that situation could lead to chaos in the streets of the scenic mountainous city. Other effects could include threats to public health from poor sanitation and more generally to social order, which is significant given Cape Town's market income inequality. And here's a really fucking sad part about this situation that Cape Town's going under right now. And it says, Western Cape Premier Helen Zille has asked South African President Jacob Zuma to declare a national disaster for the city. But the South African Minister of Water and Sanitation, Mvula Makonye, fired back at her request last week, saying the Premier was just playing politics and trying to shift the blame to the national government. So instead of saying, you know what, we're going to do that, we're going to try to just get more water from different cities and different areas of South Africa, we're just going to just point the finger back at you and say, no, we're really not going to address anything that has to do with providing any support for water distribution. And then here's a quote right here. I personally doubt whether it is possible for a city the size of Cape Town to distribute sufficient water to its residents using its own resources once the underground water pipe network has been shut down. Zio wrote earlier this month in the Daily Maverick. So that's just interesting to note right there. Here's another interesting quote. Most white families use more water than us because they sometimes shower 3 times a day. They have a lot of plants, so they have to water those plants. I'm worried that they're going to suffer more than us because we're used to this. So that's interesting, but I also say that if that is true, that also those white families are just have a blanket disregard of the rest of the residents in that city because of this. Efforts to get people to cut back on water usage haven't been working. The city has been urging every resident to consume less than 50 liters of municipal water a day and to collect what they use when showering and hand washing and reuse that gray water to flush toilets and water plants. But just 41% of residents are using 87 liters or less a day, according to the city. And many are consuming more water at home, not less, as the crisis wears on. So it's a lot of people not just giving a regard for anybody else. And that's going to just push up day zero to even closer to early April. And at first I was going to say, okay, that's pretty good right here, but since a major city running out of water is such a huge issue, because the Standing Rock Sioux tribe just said it right, because they said water is life. Every living thing based on, well, pretty much every living thing based on this earth needs water. People, a lot of mammals, reptiles, and amphibians require water to live. And I was looking to see if there's any other cities that may be running out of water or getting close to having to have real huge cutbacks to their water usage. But I found something interesting that wasn't about cities running out of water. Not necessarily, but I did find out that a beer company, a U.S. beer company, is actually just heavily overusing water in one state of Mexico. But I'm going to start with a different article. So this one's here from the Desert Sun. Well, this article talks about how Filiberto Sanchez, he protested against Constellation because they were moving into they're going to build a huge brewery in his town. So he protested there for 3 days with no food. Because Constellation Brands, they produce popular Mexican beers like Corona, Negro Modelo, and Pacifico. He says, here's his quote, "We're not opposed to businesses coming here and providing jobs," Sanchez said in Spanish, a few weeks after the hunger strike. "This business is going to dry up this state and city." In the agriculturally rich Mexicali Valley, construction of the brewery has sparked a heated conflict among small passionate groups of farmers like Sanchez, who feel their water and way of life are under attack. In addition to the hunger strike, someone set up a protest camp outside the brewery, vowing to remain there until it shuts down. A group called Mexicali Resiste is supporting the fight. They've protested outside the brewery, motivated by what they view as an injustice, that a U.S.-based company plans to use Mexico's scarce water to make beer destined for U.S. consumers. There's this mythology intertwined with the lives of Mexicali residents, where water is a fundamental aspect of our history, says Jesus Galaz Duarte, a member of Mexicali Resiste. Defending this water is in many ways defending our history. So one thing that I do want to say is that people do have a right to be able to live the way that they choose, and local government shouldn't allow a big corporation to really undermine that just for profits. So those farmers should be able to stay there and be able to keep farming as long as they like, as long as they're able to. But the more important issue is that Constellation may actually use up too much water, so So actually, that area can't support people, and people would have to move because there's literally not enough water for people to survive. Because it says a little bit, just in the next paragraph. Meanwhile, Constellation and water experts suggest the brewery will use a negligible amount of water. The company said it was used between 0.1 and 0.3% of the total water available to service the region. But I ain't buying that bullshit. And those farmers aren't buying that shit either. That's why they're protesting Constellation. Okay. And then a little bit further down it says, the Colorado River and its tributaries provide water for about 40 million people and farmlands from Wyoming to Mexico. Over decades, the water has been divvied up through a series of complicated agreements, which has led to less water flowing into the river in an average year than promised. Drought and climate change are putting additional strains on the river. In Mexicali Valley, farmers say they're concerned that as the pressures in the river grow, as brewery drinks up more of that precious supply, they're likely to get less water. Constellation will use at most 7 million cubic meters of water per year, according to Michael McGrew, Constellation's Vice President of Corporate Communications. So of course, since he works for Constellation, they may actually end up using a lot more than that. The brewery is slated to be completed in early 2020. I'll skip down a little bit. It's expected to employ an estimated 750 people. Will have the capacity to produce up to 200 million cases of beer per year. So that's a shit ton of beer. So do you really think that they're only going to use a small amount, a percentage of the water available for that city or that town, while they're making 200 million bottles of beer a year? So I mean, they're just fucking lying out their fucking asses. And then also did stumble upon this article too. And this one is from, this Desert Sun article, sorry, this was from December of last year, so it's only 3 months old. But here's an article from The Guardian from 2016. It's about Constellation Brands, that's the company, creating more problems in a different area of Mexico. Because it says right here, a brewery satisfying America's thirst for Mexican beer such as Corona is sucking so much water from wells in an arid region near the U.S. border that has left one municipality bone dry, according to a local mayor. We have no water for human consumption, Mayor Leoncio Martinez Sanchez said in the municipality of Zaragoza wrote in a single-sentence letter to Coahuila State Governor Ruben Moreira. Zaragoza is currently suffering through water shortages so severe there's barely a drop of water when you open the tap, Martinez told The Guardian. A nearby brewery run by U.S. firm Constellation Brands currently draws water from wells drilled to a depth of 500 meters. Martinez said that plans to increase production at the plant would aggravate the current situation, especially as the federal government ramps up plans for fracking in northern Mexico. We're worried because we're already being impacted by this extraction of 1,200 liters of water per second by the brewery, he said. It's contradictory that while Constellation Brands has industrial amounts of water to make beer, the municipality of Zaragoza doesn't have 100 liters per second of water to give people to drink or use in their homes. Martinez says the deep wells supplying the brewery are located approximately 20 kilometers from the municipal seat and have caused water supply problems in the Zaragoza since being drilled a decade ago. So I also have an issue with The Guardian because the title for this is so fucking misleading, because this article is with the title is trying to blame Americans wanting to drink beer, and that's why they're just completely taxing and just gutting the water supplies for this city in Mexico, when that's not the fucking case. It's that huge corporation that's going into an arid area that doesn't get much water at all, and is just overtaxing the water supply. And this is the fucking problem with capitalism right here, is that we're going to let all these corporations take natural resources for pennies on the dollar because they're buying all these local politicians, local and regional politicians, and then a lot of times the media doesn't want to talk about it at all. Or they're going to try to mislead you and say, the problem's for something else or because of something else, not because of the capitalistic system that's letting them profit while people suffer. So we'll need to just keep looking out at more issues with just basic water access and just big businesses undermining people in local areas by just hogging natural resources so they can make a profit. Because with climate change just increasing at an increasing rate now, all these issues, all these environmental issues that are going on with water and with droughts, etc., etc., it's going to get worse and more common by the day.